Brecht is not only, as a dramaturg himself, has taken pains to articulate his theory as well as to critique others and their ability to produce good aesthetic art, but also because within the field of theater history and theory, so many scholars have already taken up this sort of question of Brecht. From the perspective of, has he been done so much that his technique no longer works, to the perspective of, is his work still applicable after the fall of the wall? Because of course he's writing from a much different perspective. He survived both world wars, but he also lived to see exactly what would happen with communism, the theories that he'd studied coming into a very different kind of fruition. And yet now here we are on the other side of the wall falling, and the questions of how applicable Brecht is are vexing. And from my perspective also, not just as a dramaturg, but just as a scholar, having a great deal of respect for someone who is both a scholar and an artist at the same time, as obviously we try to emulate here on this campus in our program. So.
And what in your research has just been like, oh, this is too much, or whoa, this is actually quite exciting?
First of all, as you can imagine, there's so much research. So it's taken a while to kind of get to an aha moment. Really, the first phases were more of cataloging, running out of room in my brain, running out of room in my car, running out of room everywhere to sort of see, okay, what's the next category? But what I think I've really happened upon that's my biggest aha moment came from an article, well, an essay written by Elisa Solomon, Materialist Girl, Making Gender Strange. And it's in a book of hers, Redressing the Canon, basically the question of looking at the canon from a feminist perspective. And that, for me, has been so huge. As a feminist myself, someone looking at this work and seeing so many others who critiqued Good Person for its easy gender switch and for the ways in which they saw the author as not trying to change patriarchy, but rather working within it and basically coming to the conclusion Shinte does, they would say, from their perspective, that you can't break the system, you have to work within it. And Elisa Solomon pointed out what my frustration was so often within the research, which was, wait a minute, that's not Brecht. He's not just saying this is the way it is, so we have to accept it. He's pointing that out as by way of a parable so that we can step back and say, why is this always the way that it has to be? Why are the feminine qualities always the qualities that are oppressed? And why are the masculine qualities always the ones that are the oppressor? Why can't these things be switched? And when we see in one actor the two different genders being put on and taken off, Solomon argues, and I support, that Brecht gives us an opportunity, and certainly feminist director has an opportunity, to exploit that as a question of performance, that gender is performed. And that doesn't mean that we freely choose, as Judith Butler would tell us, that we don't get to freely choose, that these choices do have consequences. But that again is exactly what Brecht is showing us, that the consequence of choosing the feminine gender is that you will be walked over. The consequence of choosing the masculine gender is that people will respect you, but they won't love you. And so there's this sort of give and take that neither one is perfect. And that's where the lesson is, and the part that was the aha moment is that it's not saying that masculine is good and feminine is bad. That's far too easy. It's the dialectic. It's the use of the extremes to come to a new hypothesis, something that is, I guess, in this case, androgynous in terms of gender.
So where did you come from to come to that point?
Well, to be honest, as a person who loves Artaud, I mean, I do, and any of my students will tell you, whenever I talk about Brecht and then I talk about Artaud, it's really clear which one of the two practitioners. And
I do remember that, I do.
And they are almost always pit against each other, right? That Artaud is the one who feels and Brecht's the one who thinks. And I've always been the one who loves me some Artaud and feels that he's misunderstood. But what the truth is that Brecht is misunderstood as well. That we have been, we meaning the conversation, the field, scholarship, we've been too quick to put both of them into these extremes. Artaud wasn't just about feeling, and Brecht was not just about thinking. So I think where I came from was this same sort of assumption that so many of the other scholars that I eventually got so frustrated with were in, of saying, well, Brecht is the one who's asking us to think critically. And also people who, and I shared this as well, who would judge him and say, his productions can't be valuable if people don't transform into communists. But that's not what he was trying to do. He was never trying to convince us of a party line. He may have been attracted to certain principles of Marxism, but as some of his own contemporaries remarked, he had a lot of capitalist in him as well. He wasn't that easily categorized. So that's, I think, my big journey. And maybe if we do our job well, what the audience will get to sort of experience as well, that their assumptions about Brecht coming in are changed and challenged, just like our assumptions about capitalism, about gender, about class, get questioned with this play.
Do you agree with the main theme of the show? Can you be good in a capitalistic society, or does it take a different society to be a good person? It's really...
Okay, so I'm going to answer that from a quotation from Elisa Solomon, and she says, Shinte can't do good unless Shweta does well. And I think for me that really summarizes the theme and also what I think is true about this play. I agree with that we can't do good works unless we make money. Now, I don't know that I agree that the only way to make money is to be cruel or to be mean, but I do agree in a capitalist society, you're not going to be able to actually make a difference unless you've got money to work with. Right. Well, I think of Bill Gates and all of the, good that he's been able to do and attention that he's been able to bring to NPR and these other struggling organizations. He brings that attention in part because he's got the money, he's got the clout, and as long as we're going to live in a capitalist society, that is power.